Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here, especially our Attorney General, David Yost, Executive Chris Ronayne, and very much so welcome to the family of Danny Mitchell. Today's kind of a solemn day. I think it's an important day, though, and I have a little bit of background before I turn the podium over. The Mitchell family are here because Danny Mitchell went missing in April of 1980, and he was a 20-year-old young fella at that time. We never give up on trying to find folks. He was missing for all this time, and we're glad to report in some way that we had remains that went unidentified for a long period of time, but through a major team effort, we can confirm now that those remains do in fact belong to Danny Mitchell. We gratefully acknowledge the support of Cuyahoga County and the state of Ohio and hope that that brings some comfort to the family of Danny, though I think it's a terrible loss any way we look at it, to find out that it isn't the ending any of us hoped for. So our condolences to you and our heartfelt sympathy. With that, I was going to turn things over to our County Executive, Chris Ronayne.
Thank you, Dr. Gilson. I'm Chris Ronayne. I'm Cuyahoga County Executive. I want to thank Dr. Gilson. I want to thank the entire medical examiner's team. I want to thank Attorney General David Yost for being with us today. And I really mostly want to say to the family, thank you for having the courage to be here today. It is a difficult day, to say the least, but I do want to say to the investigators on the forensic side, on our medical examiner's staff, thank you for staying vigil, because I'm sure this family will speak for themselves about this, but to know, to understand, to have some sense of understanding of where this has gone and now have some closure and peace. The medical examiner's team, through their tireless forensics, has led us to this day. Just want to say I did not have the pleasure to know Danny Lee Mitchell, but to the family, again, our thoughts, condolences, and also our appreciation for you and for the medical examiner's team that you're all here. Investigators, you don't do this for any other reason than the appreciation of the work you do, and you don't do it for the accolades, but today we should thank you for staying vigil and tirelessly moving through this case to get to where we are. It's critical that our scientific support here at the medical examiner's office works with law enforcement partners every day to ultimately solve what we call cold cases and really give family peace. So again, I say to you, you're part of our family at Cuyahoga County, and this medical examiner's family is a part of that as well. We all get to know each other. I want to say a special thanks to the Regional Forensic Science Laboratory, Dr. Carr and Christina Lakova, and the entire investigative department here at the CCMEO. As Dr. Gilson said, Danny Lee Mitchell was in the missing persons identified classification, but after 45 years, we're here today with closure on this case. He was 20 when reported missing on April 2nd, 1980, from the area of East 63rd Street and Euclid Avenue, what we know today as Midtown. His unidentified remains were located nearby back when, on May 17th, 1980. And it wasn't until 2017, a long time, 37 years, when Danny's family saw a press conference held by Twinsburg PD regarding what they call the John Doe missing person case that started bringing everybody together. The DNA of the unidentified remains was submitted to a national database in 2000. Family references were also submitted, and in February of 2025, the DNA profile developed from literally rootless hairs to help lead us to the conclusion of this case and identify Danny Lee Mitchell. So I think it's already a moment of silence, but I would call for it officially for a moment of silence for Danny Lee Mitchell and for the family of Danny Lee Mitchell. If we could just bow our heads and take a moment of silence. Thank you, and to the family, our thoughts, our prayers, and our continued support is with you. I'm now honored to introduce our Ohio Attorney General, David Yost. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilson, for hosting us here today. I want to support the family and start by expressing my sincere condolences. Danny's maker never forgot his name, and today we remember. I'm incredibly proud of the team at BCI that worked with the medical examiner, with police and other law enforcement agencies, with their compassion for this man without even knowing his name. Bruce, you and your team have reinforced a core tenet of our office, which is everybody counts. Everybody counts. Solving cold cases is equal to parts of determination and perseverance. Who knows what case will be solved next, but it seems like every few months we have some new development in a case, and I'm really excited that we are beginning to close some of the cold cases. This was exactly what I had hoped for when we started the cold case unit at BCI in 2019, to identify those who have yet to return home to their families and to do the first piece of a criminal investigation when that's warranted, which is identification. Every identity that is revealed is a reminder of the advances that DNA has come over the years of my practice. Things that weren't possible just a few years ago are now everyday occurrences. Things that were not even thinkable 30 years ago now open the doors to new hope and solutions that might be there. I also want to make an important point. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the retention of the evidence. A clump of scalp hair is what led to cracking this case. All these years, it was part of the file. And I know, Chris, I know it's expensive. I need you to keep spending the money because we've got to keep these kits. We've got to maintain the evidence. You can't tell even 5 years from now, much less 10 or 20, what the science might enable us to do that we can't do today. The evidence is crucial, and we appreciate the effort and the expense that our law enforcement, our local governments go to make sure of that. Science is going to change. It will develop. We'll have new investigative techniques. One thing I promise you that will not change, and that is the dedication and determination of the law enforcement community to make sure that everybody counts. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up, especially thanks. I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that our county certainly had a lot of support from our state laboratory, the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation. And it really did take a big village to kind of get to the conclusion that we're at today. I know it's sad, you know, I was thinking about what I was doing in 1980. I was a senior in high school when Danny disappeared, and I thought, you know, Danny has siblings, and I'm one of 4 brothers, and I feel for you because we're about the same vintage, I think, and I couldn't imagine, you know, not knowing what happened to one of my brothers for as long as you do. I hope, you know, we always remember to keep, you know, you and the folks who are still waiting for their loved ones to come home in our prayers, because that's a very, very tough road to hoe. And while I think closure is always a nice, you know, something we can do at the end of the work we do, it doesn't bring somebody back, and it doesn't bring back all those lost years that we wanted to share. I did want to talk briefly about the history of how things came to this day. As we mentioned, Danny went missing in April of 1980. There were skeletal remains found actually not far from there in May of 1980. The last known place where Danny was. At that time in 1980, DNA had yet to been used in criminal work, so we didn't really have any DNA until 1986, and it really didn't become prevalent until, probably about 5 to 10 years later in most places. There was no big fingerprint identification base. If we had been able to have fingerprints recovered, which we could not, all that was really able to be done by our previous coroner, Dr. Elizabeth Balraj, was to take a look and say, I don't see any obvious signs of injury, and we don't have too much more that we can do to try to identify this person. I think, in retrospect, one would wonder, geez, it was right beside where he went missing, but the state of decomposition, I think at the time, may have suggested that the person had been there longer. I don't know for sure. But no cause of death was ever identified with the skeletal remains, and the manner of death was left undetermined. I can't say enough about how, the BCI team, with the reconstruction that they did on another skeleton, really, I think, drove things forward and got the Mitchell family, on the radar, that we started to kind of renew the investigation for Danny. And when that skeleton actually turned out to be someone different, we already had your DNA, and we had a chance to find somebody, who matched that DNA in the form of this other individual who also had no name. And when that happened, we were able to start to use technology that back in the 1980s, when people did DNA, they couldn't do anything with hair that didn't have roots to it. But the technology keeps getting better over time. So it finally got to that point where everything could come together and get us to this point where we know what happened, at least where Danny Mitchell is, if not necessarily what happened. And I hope that that gives you some peace. And I would say, the last thing I would say before I turn over to Jennifer Lester, who's the criminal intelligence analyst at the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, is we will never give up on trying to find names for people who were lost. I think one of the hardest things that you ever find at the end of an investigation, from my perspective, is I really don't know who this person is. And another hard one, which I think we'll still try to work on maybe with renewed investigation, is I don't know especially what happened to this person either. Knowing who we're dealing with certainly puts a new spin on things, but I think we'll never give up on those things. And I think that, as the Attorney General said, I don't know what'll be coming, the end of, my career and into the next, but I think that the idea of bringing somebody home to their family never becomes something we'll stop trying to do. Jennifer, I hand the mic over to you, and thank you again, Executive and Attorney General, for supporting the laboratories that make this possible.
So as he said, I had the honor of being the analyst assigned to this case. I had the honor of talking to Danny's family, understanding what they were going through, and doing something with it. And like he said, teamwork is an understatement of this case. Without all of our partners in this field, we could never have taken this case to where we are now. I haven't heard them mention, but I want to mention the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They are a huge part of this case. They are why we are here today. Without their assistance in this case, it might have been years until we got here. And also NAMUS. Like you mentioned, when Danny's case came on my radar, I immediately put him into NAMUS, which is the National Missing Database. And when Cuyahoga County entered their unidentified 3 years later, that was how we immediately started looking to compare these cases. So working missing person cases, the power of resources and the power of the resources that are out there, we couldn't exist without it. So all those things together is what played a part in this case. Obviously, technology I will be forever grateful for. Like they all said, DNA is constantly changing, better quality technology is out there, and I'm extremely grateful for that. In the same token, just like Danny's family called us, this is my plea for any family. in Ohio, any state, to please call us if you haven't seen your loved one in years. It doesn't matter if it's 40, 30, last week. We have a toll-free number at BCI that families can call and report their loved one. Danny's case is now getting to a closure. We have many more, even in Cuyahoga County, that we also need to do the same thing for. So I would love for any families to call us. Don't think that, you know, you already called the local agency and maybe you didn't feel like you were getting anywhere. Please call us, because like this case shows, the example of all of us working together for these cases is how we're going to get them to where they are. Also, we have a Missing Persons Day scheduled for May 17th. It's down in the Dayton area at Wright State University. If the families don't want to call law enforcement, they are welcome to come to that event. We will swab them for DNA. That DNA will get entered into CODIS, and we will also offer additional resources to the families at that time. Thank you.
Bring everybody back. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Yeah, sure.
So I understand that Danny is a Cleveland resident. He went missing and the remains were found in Cleveland, but I see that one of the breaks happened with the Twinsburg press conference. What was the Twinsburg's connection to this?
I'll let Jennifer answer that one.
Sorry, what Twinsburg you said? What happened with that doe?
Twinsburg pushed the...
Last seen Cleveland location remains discovered. How did Twinsburg get involved?
So we had worked John Doe out of Summit County, which was the Twinsburg John Doe. My coworker does facial reconstruction, so for that case, she completed a facial reconstruction. I also want to thank our communications, because without them pushing this stuff out to the media, we wouldn't be where we are. They pushed that case out. Danny's sister saw it on the news, and she thought that reconstruction resembled Danny, which is what made her call our toll-free line and give his information to me. He has since been identified through DNA as Frank Little, so that case has been identified.
So the previous case where DCI was working with Twinsburg,
Yes.
Summit County, and after that case, the communication was a little, DCI did an additional case, and that's how Danny Mitchell was identified.
So Frank Little's case brought in Danny's case, and I opened a new missing person case for Danny Mitchell and continued to work the missing person case for Danny Mitchell.
Jennifer, you worked closely with the family. Can you tell us more about what you learned about Danny as a person?
You know, he was a great person. He loved church, he loved singing, he loved dancing, and he loved his family.
Was there any evidence found that could help you, help anyone solve this case if it does become a police matter down the line? Any evidence of the scene that you could elaborate on?
I did have the opportunity to review his autopsy report and his police report. Right now, I would say no, but I think, it's one of those things that knowing who somebody is can really jumpstart an investigation. So I think that this is worth going back and taking another look at. But right now, there wasn't any obvious foul play that was described in the autopsy report.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I have one more question. In Cuyahoga County, there are 56 cases listed right now in NAMIS of unidentified John and Jane Doe. What else is the county doing to clear the backlog and move these cases forward?
It's a good question. I think sometimes these are very serendipitous. Somebody sees something and they say, that might be my relative. We continue to kind of reconcile. The NAMIS database that Jennifer mentioned includes missing persons and unidentified persons. And there were a lot of people who in the internet, so we had a case a few years ago where somebody recognized, oh, there was a missing person about the same time there was an unidentified person found. So some of that stuff I think really doesn't necessarily always lend itself to systematic reviews. For the people we have now who are missing, we enter their data into the CODIS database, the DNA database, and see if we can identify individuals. The Attorney General's office has done, familial searches for people too, though the priority there is to try to find, bad guys with the familial searches, but we've tried it with unidentified and had great success with that too. So I would say, you know, actively sometimes you don't really have a lot of steps because you've gotten really to the end of the line, but those things where some family member comes and says, I think this might be so-and-so, even though it didn't turn out to be Danny, it led us to Danny. And I think that that's really kind of the stuff that, as Jennifer said, you know, if you think, you know, something's at a dead end, reach out and call that hotline again and pass on the missing person information.
I think as we're wrapping up, I would say thank you for being here, members of the press, today. It's always resources and collaboration. This is a team effort, as you saw today, and we'll stay vigilant. In closing, just again, thank you to the family for your courage to be with us today. Thanks, everybody.